The limousine idled at the curb outside Riverside Elementary School, its dark windows reflecting the afternoon sun. Inside, Thomas Ashford sat alone in the back seat. His tie loosened and his eyes closed. At 40 years old, he was the CEO of Ashford Industries, a man whose decisions affected thousands of employees and shaped market trends. But at this moment, he felt utterly powerless. His phone buzzed with another message from his assistant. The Tokyo investors were waiting for his call, the merger. Documents needed his signature by end of day 3. Different departments had urgent matters requiring his attention. Thomas silenced the phone and pressed his fingers. Against his temples, the headache that had started this morning was now a constant throb. His driver, Robert, glanced at him in the rearview mirror with concern. "Mr. Ashford, are you certain you want to wait here? I could circle the block?" "No, Robert. I need a moment of quiet." "Just a moment where no one needs anything from me." Robert nodded and returned his attention to the street Thomas had asked to be driven past the elementary school on impulse. He did not have children, had never married, despite several serious relationships over the years, but lately he found himself drawn to places like this. Places filled with the sound of children's laughter, places that reminded him of what was missing from his carefully constructed life through the tinted window. He watched children pour out of the school building. Parents waited on the sidewalk, arms open for hugs, smiles ready. A father tossed his son into the air. A mother knelt to retie her daughter's shoelace. Such simple moments of connection. Thomas felt something twist in his chest. Was this what loneliness felt like? Or was it regret for choices not made, paths not taken? A small movement caught his eye. A little girl, perhaps 4 or 5 years old, stood alone on the sidewalk. She had blonde, curly hair that caught the sunlight like a halo. She wore a light blue sweater and held a stuffed rabbit close to her chest, while other children ran to waiting parents. She simply stood there, looking around with wide eyes. Thomas frowned. Where were her parents? Minutes passed. The crowd of children thinned as families departed. Still, the little girl waited. A teacher came out, spoke to her briefly, then went back inside. Presumably to make a phone call, the girl's shoulders sagged slightly. Thomas found himself watching her, this small figure of patience and quiet sadness. Then, to his complete surprise, the little girl turned and looked directly at his car, even through the tinted windows. He felt the weight of her gaze. She walked toward the limousine with the determined steps of a child on a mission. Robert noticed her approach. "Sir, there is a child walking toward us. I see her." The girl stopped beside the car and peered up at the dark window. Then she did something unexpected. She knocked 3 small, polite knocks on the bulletproof glass. Thomas found himself reaching for the window. Control before he consciously decided to do so. The window lowered. Smoothly, the little girl looked at him with eyes that were far too serious for someone so young. "Hello," she said politely. "Hello." Thomas replied. "Are you lost?" "No, sir. I am waiting for my grandmother." "She's always late." The girl paused, studying him. "You look sad," Thomas was taken aback by her directness. "I am just tired. My mom used to say that being tired and being sad sometimes feel the same." Used to say past tense. Thomas felt his heart constrict. "Your mother was very wise." The little girl nodded solemnly. "She was. She died last year. It was cancer." The matter-of-fact way she said it, as if she had learned to recite this painful truth without breaking, made Thomas ache for her. "I am very sorry. Thank you. Now it is just me and Grandma Rose. But Grandma has to work a lot, so sometimes she forgets what time school ends." The girl shifted her stuffed rabbit to her other arm. "What is your name?" Thomas asked gently. "Olivia." "Olivia Marie Patterson. What is yours?" "Thomas." "Thomas Ashford. That is a good name," Olivia said approvingly. Then, with the startling honesty of a child, she asked, "Do you have a family, Mr. Thomas?" "No, I do not." Olivia considered this. "That must be lonely. Sometimes it is. I get lonely too. Grandma tries, but she is always so tired. And she is old, so she cannot play like my mom used to." Olivia looked at her rabbit, then back at Thomas. "Do you know what I wish sometimes?" "What do you wish, Olivia?" She leaned closer to the window and lowered her voice to a whisper, as if sharing a precious secret. I wish I could find someone who needs a family as much as I do. Because you know what? What? You need a wife. And I need a dad. The words hung in the air between them, simple, honest, heartbreaking in their clarity. Thomas felt something crack open inside his chest. Here was this small child, who had lost her mother, who waited alone after school, who carried her grief with such dignity, and she was offering him something he had not even realized he was desperately searching for: Olivia. "That is a beautiful wish," he said softly. "But wishes are tricky things. Sometimes they come true in ways we do not expect. Do you believe in wishes, Mr. Thomas?" Thomas thought about his life, about the deals he had closed, the companies he had built. The success he had achieved, all of it felt suddenly hollow compared to this conversation with a child holding a stuffed rabbit. "I am starting to," he said. A car pulled up behind the limousine. An older woman, probably in her late 60s, hurried out. She had kind eyes but looked worn and worried. "Olivia, oh sweetheart, I am so sorry I am late. The bus broke down, and I had to walk 6 blocks. Olivia turned to her grandmother. "It is okay, Grandma. I made a new friend." The grandmother noticed Thomas in the limousine for the first time. Her expression shifted to concern. "Olivia, what have I told you about talking to strangers?" "But Grandma, he is not strange. He is just lonely, like us." Thomas stepped out of the car before the situation could escalate. He offered his hand to the grandmother. "Thomas Ashford, ma'am. Your granddaughter was kind enough to keep me company while I was waiting here. She is a remarkable young lady." The grandmother shook his hand hesitantly. "Rose Patterson. I apologize if she bothered you. Not at all. She brightened my entire day." Rose looked between Thomas and Olivia, clearly trying to assess the situation. Thomas made a decision that would have shocked his board of directors. "Mrs. Patterson, I know this is unusual, but would you and Olivia consider joining me for dinner? Nothing fancy, just a meal. I would very much like to continue our conversation." Rose's eyes widened. "Sir, I do not think—" "Please, Grandma," Olivia said. "Mr. Thomas is nice." "And we were just going to have canned soup at home anyway." Rose flushed with embarrassment. Thomas saw her pride warring with her exhaustion. "Mrs. Patterson, I spend my days in boardrooms making decisions that affect people I will never meet. But I rarely have the chance to simply share a meal with good company. It would be a kindness to me." Something in his tone, the genuine loneliness that matched her own, made Rose relent. "Just dinner." "Somewhere normal, please. Not anywhere too fancy." "I know just the place," Thomas said. He called his assistant and canceled every remaining meeting for the day. The Tokyo investors would have to wait. The merger documents could be reviewed tomorrow for the first time in years. Something mattered more than work. They went to a family diner that Thomas had not visited since his own childhood, the kind of place with red vinyl, booths and laminated menus and pie in a glass case. Olivia sat beside him, her stuffed rabbit occupying the space between them over hamburgers and milkshakes. Thomas learned about their lives. Rose had been a nurse before retiring when her daughter Sarah got sick. Rose had come to help care for Olivia after Sarah's death. Rose became Olivia's legal guardian, but her pension was small. She had taken a job as a home health aide to make ends meet. The hours were long and the pay was modest. She worried constantly about giving Olivia the life she deserved. "Sarah was so bright," Rose said, her eyes distant. She had dreams. She wanted Olivia to have opportunities, to travel, to see the world beyond our neighborhood. "What did Sarah do?" Thomas asked. "She was a teacher. 3rd grade. The children loved her." Olivia nodded enthusiastically. "My mom was the best teacher. She made learning fun. She said that every child has something special inside them, and a good teacher helps them find it." "She sounds like she was an amazing person," Thomas said. "She was," Olivia said simply. Over the course of the meal, Thomas found himself sharing things he rarely discussed: his own childhood, raised by a single father who worked constantly, the loneliness of success, the empty house he returned to each night. "It is strange," he admitted. "I have spent years building my company, proving myself, achieving goals. But lately I find myself wondering what it is all for. Who am I building this for? Rose looked at him with understanding. My late husband used to say that success without someone to share it with is just decorated loneliness. That is exactly right, Thomas said. Olivia, who had been quietly eating her French fries, suddenly spoke up. Mr. Thomas, do you know what my mom told me before she died? What did she tell you, sweetheart? She said that family is not always about who you are born to. Sometimes family is about who chooses to love you. Thomas felt tears prick his eyes. Your mother was very wise. So maybe, Olivia continued with the logic of a child, we could choose each other. You could be my family and we could be yours? Rose gently touched Olivia's hand. Honey, Mr. Ashford has his own life. We cannot just... Actually, Thomas interrupted, surprising himself. What if there was a way we could help each other? He looked at Rose. Mrs. Patterson, I have more resources than I know what to do with. I have a house that is far too large for one person. And I have a schedule that desperately needs someone to remind me that there is more to life than work. He paused, choosing his words carefully. What if I could help with Olivia? I could provide education, opportunities, security, not as charity but as family. And in return, you could both remind me what it means to have people who matter more than profit margins. Rose stared at him. Mr. Ashford, that is incredibly generous, but we barely know you. You are right. We barely know each other. But sometimes, the best things in life start with a leap of faith. Over the next few weeks, Thomas and Rose worked out an arrangement. Thomas purchased a house in a good neighborhood and provided it to Rose and Olivia. Rent-free, he set up a trust fund for Olivia's education. He hired help so Rose would not have to work such exhausting hours. In return, he became a regular presence in their lives. He attended Olivia's school events. He had dinner with them several times a week. He read bedtime stories and helped with homework and learned to braid hair slowly. Carefully, they built something none of them had expected, a family of choice, 6 months after that first meeting outside the school. Thomas sat in his living room. Olivia was curled up beside him, falling asleep against his shoulder as he read to her. Rose sat in the armchair across from them, knitting and smiling. You know, Rose said quietly, when Sarah was dying, she made me promise that I would make sure Olivia had a good life, that she would know she was loved. Rose's voice grew thick. I have done my best, but there were so many nights I worried it was not enough, that I could not give her what she needed. She looked at Thomas with tears in her eyes. You have given us such a gift. Not just the financial help, though that has been life-changing. But you have given Olivia something she lost when Sarah died. What is that? Hope? Joy? The belief that good people exist and that she deserves to be loved? Thomas looked down at Olivia, now fully asleep. She saved me too, you know. I was drowning in success and starving for meaning. She reminded me what really matters. A year later, Thomas made it official. He legally adopted Olivia. With Rose's blessing and participation, Rose would always be Grandma, the connection to Sarah. The foundation of love, but Thomas became Dad, the CEO who had everything. And nothing now had something that actually mattered. He cut back his hours at work, created a foundation in Sarah's name to help single parents struggling with medical debt. He turned his resources toward causes that helped children like Olivia, and every day, he came home to a house filled with laughter and love. One evening, as he tucked Olivia into bed, she looked up at him with those serious eyes. Dad, do you remember what I told you that first day? About wishes? I remember. I wished for someone who needed a family as much as I did. She smiled. I am glad I wished for you. Thomas kissed her forehead. I am glad you did too, sweetheart. Best wish anyone ever made. As he turned out the light and headed downstairs, Thomas thought about the path his life had taken. He had achieved success by being strategic, by planning, by controlling outcomes, but the best thing that ever happened to him came from a completely unexpected moment. A little girl with a stuffed rabbit, a whispered observation about loneliness, an honest wish shared between strangers. Sometimes the greatest riches come not from what we achieve, but from what we are willing to receive, from the courage to admit we need something we cannot buy, from the willingness to build family from choice and love rather than obligation and blood. Thomas had thought he knew what success looked like. Turns out, It looked like a blonde, curly-haired girl who saw his loneliness and offered her own, and in doing so, saved them both. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales about unexpected families and the power of choosing love. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts on what makes a family or a time when a small moment changed your entire life. Your stories inspire others and remind us all that we are connected by our shared humanity and our need for belonging.